Hello and welcome to the Unique CPA with your host, Randy Crabtree. We're committed to creating a thriving community of accounting professionals who are physically and mentally healthy, fulfilled, and energized by their work. Our ultimate goal is to elevate the reputation of the accounting profession and vastly improve the lives of those in it. The Unique CPA is brought to you by Tri-Merit, the specialty tax professionals.
Today on the Unique CPA, I'm thrilled to welcome two incredible professionals who are not only experts in their fields, but are now joining forces to launch something truly important for the accounting profession. Nancy McClelland and Questian Telka. They are now the co-host of the brand new podcast called She Counts, which I'm excited to discuss today. And together they are creating a space to explore the experiences of women in accounting, challenge outdated industry norms, and elevate stories that too often go unheard. We're going to be talking about why She Counts matters, what inspired them to create it, and how they are hoping to drive change, which I love change in the profession, while having some fun along the way. Plus, you'll hear a bit about their upcoming sessions at this year's Bridging the Gap conference. Nancy, Questian, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Randy, thank you so much for having us.
We're happy to be here.
As anybody listening doesn't realize, it took me like 3 tries to get that intro done. So we got it done at least, and now we're ready to go.
You did a beautiful job. That was a gorgeous intro because not only it was really lovely, but you get what we're doing. And that makes me so excited. You know, we really are trying to drive change in the industry, which is something that I know you're passionate about. So thank you for that lovely intro.
Very passionate about it. And I know about it because you told me about it already. So I got to learn from you. But I understand and I appreciate what you're doing. There's a lot that we could dig into what you're doing. But why don't we just start with the big news? And why don't you give us a little deeper understanding of what's going on with the podcast? You know, what kind of conversations you're having, you're going to have guests on. Give me the whole backstory of what's going on here.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again for having us on the Unique CPA. This is the perfect place to be able to announce that we're finally, which you'll hear about a little bit later because it took a while.
Yeah,
we're finally launching this podcast passion project. She Counts is a real talk podcast for women in accounting. And we've teamed up with Earmark. So you'll be able to get CPE for listening.
Nice.
And we're going to have authentic conversations about the realities that women in accounting face.
Yeah, I think our aim is really to break through the isolation that so many women in accounting experience. Nancy and I both did ourselves. So each episode is really supposed to be like a virtual community where all of the women tuning in and all of the bookkeepers and accountants and all of the many different roles in accounting can feel seen, heard, and be understood. And, we hope to do that by bringing up relatable, hopefully, topics. So we're really excited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we want to bring into the open those taboo topics that, they're common challenges, they're unspoken questions that, to be honest, I mean, women in accounting, they face every frickin' day.
Yeah.
Like whether they're running their own firms or they're working within organizations, we want to extend to everyone out there, to every woman who has ever struggled with a workplace issue or questioned if her experiences are normal, quote unquote, or not. We want to extend our professional circles to include them because it's an isolating place to be, as Questian was saying.
Yeah.
So I am not completely qualified to bring up what those issues are. But let me tell you, Nancy, you and I may have discussed this once. And I don't remember if we did or not. But I was out actually in Portland last year, 2 years ago. I think I did talk to you about this.
Yep.
And I was bringing up horror stories that I had in accounting. It was my second job in accounting. And to me, it was just a terrible thing. And then the women that I was with, which there was a bunch of women, we were just out to dinner. And it was like, wow, I don't understand what a real horror story is. Because, I mean, the gist of it was if you haven't, locked yourself in the closet and cried at work, you haven't had a normal interaction within the profession, which I don't know what the word is, but it's just like,
Boggled?
I mean, it makes me feel boggled, but it makes me feel sad that that's a reality, that everybody had that same response to what they've gone through in the profession.
Well, and what's really interesting too is that so many women, when you're bringing up these stories, right? There are so many of us that have these stories. And I think for a long time, you feel like you're alone or you only have that story. And so then you start talking to other women and you realize that everybody seems to have one of those stories. So we really want to help other women by kind of bringing topics like that to the forefront so that they don't feel so alone.
Absolutely. And not just other women not feeling alone, but Randy, I have a question for you that is related to this. How did it change you as a cis white male hearing those stories at that dinner? How did it change the way that you then went out into the world and interacted with women? Did it make you a better leader? Did it make you a more compassionate human being? Because this podcast isn't just for the women who are struggling with these things. They're for all of the people in the world to be able to see what's going on and to make us all better people. So what was your experience with that?
Yeah, my experience was for sure is like, how did I not know this?
Mm-hmm.
How is this not something that I've seen or heard? Because it was not, there was 15 of us out to dinner, I'm guessing 10 women, and it was not one person saying this. It was the entire table. And I'm like, this is something we need to talk about.
Yeah.
This is something we have to figure out why this is happening. We have to figure out what's going on. And so from that standpoint, when I go out and present, I have a different mindset when I'm talking about culture. I have a different, openness to realize that I don't know everybody's situation. I think I've always thought that way, but it's like there's more going on out there than I realize, and make sure that you don't, try to fit everything into one bucket.
Absolutely. That's so perfectly said. I mean, women are actually hungry for community and validation and practical advice from peers, like you're saying, from the other people who actually understand their specific challenges. I mean, Question and I wanted this for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
This was something that we craved. So
Yeah.
we just decided to create
That's
it.
why we did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get into that then, because you said there is a backstory. It was a long process to get going. When did this, the brainstorm begin on this, and what was like the tipping point? It's like, okay, we need to do this, and now how do we go about it?
Yeah, I think every time Nancy and I would get on a call with each other, we would just have these incredible conversations. I call it conversational chemistry. And so we were having all of these topics come about continually between each other, but we also realized that we were having these conversations with other women in the community on WhatsApp, at conferences. And, both of us are very fortunate that we have that community already, because we are able to go to those conferences and we have been able to grow that. But, we want to make that something that's accessible for everyone. So I think I actually said to Nancy as a joke, hey, maybe we should make a podcast. Because I was like, this is...
She did. Because to her point, the biggest motivation in deciding to launch this podcast is that it's what we each wished we had in our own lives as we were each starting our firms. I've run my firm for 24 years and Question, how long have you been running yours?
Almost 5.
And then before that, you worked in the accounting industry at larger firms, right?
I worked at Deloitte, but in an operational role. But then I worked in an accounting role at a nonprofit.
So we've got lots of background and experience, and throughout our lives. We're basically, Question and I are our own target audience. Women in accounting who want to feel seen and heard and have these real talk conversations about the realities we face. And, it's so isolating, Randy. It really is. It's so isolating until you find out, like in the Bridging the Gap, Vulnerability is a Strength panel that I did last year. When you find out that others in your community are struggling with some of the same things that you're struggling, it actually builds resilience. And then you can, if you have resilience, you can bounce back when things get difficult.
Yeah. And it took definitely a little bit of nudging. It took like 2 years and a lot of nudging.
Bugging me. Because first she said it as a joke. And then she got this idea that, we actually took this text thread of ideas and we copied it to a Google Doc. That was the seed.
Huh?
Right now we've got over 30 episodes planned, but it started with this one text thread that we copied to a Google Doc, and she kept bugging me and I kept saying no. I had turned down previous offers to host a podcast, and I felt like I don't have time for this, So it was a slow burn until it completely caught fire.
Yeah. And I learned that persistence works with Nancy too, because I'll share with you that when we met each other through Bookkeeping Buds, I was like, wow, she is so smart and bright. And this is all in a Slack channel, and I'm reading and communicating with her. And I was like, hey, you're amazing. I want to be friends. And Nancy was like, yeah, I really don't have time. But I didn't give up. I didn't give up. So
persistence. That's great.
I'm a monster. Well, she proved to me what a smart cookie she was. And not only did we end up becoming friends, but I was like, hey, do you want to do contract work for me? So she was actually one of my team members for quite some time.
Nice. I did not know that story. All right.
Yeah. While she was launching her own firm. It was wonderful. So we know each other as friends. We know each other from Bookkeeping Buds, and we know each other from working together. So we've had lots of opportunities to discuss these unique challenges of being a woman in the field.
So what I hear is it was a 2-year process. It was over a chat.
Probably longer.
And then, so after this 2-year process of going through everything and the persistence that Questian had, not only becoming friends, but working together and then starting a podcast together. Do you think today is now the perfect time? Have things got to a spot where maybe people are more open to these conversations? Do you think this is the time? Is there a reason now is the time?
I think that whenever there's anything really important that you want to do, you can't do it yesterday, and tomorrow's too late. So today's always the perfect time, right? This is when it's happening, because this was for us when it caught fire, because I sort of on a whim. So I am a recipient of the top 50 Women in Accounting Award from Ignition. And this year they decided to change it. And instead of giving the award out every year, they're going to give it out every other year. And in the opposite years, they're going to be highlighting voices of alumni. And to that end, they put together a grant for projects that we're working on that affect women in the field. And on a whim, I was just, we've had this Google Doc that we've been adding to, and we keep having these conversations. And, I think at the point at which I did this, we probably had, a good 15 to 20 episodes already planned for this imaginary podcast that was going to happen in the future. And on a whim, when I saw that they had put this grant out there, I decided to apply. And they immediately wrote back and were like, wow, this is amazing. Yes, we want to support it. I mean, it was just immediate. There's such wonderful people. So I got in touch with Questian and I was like, well, I think that we're doing this because we just got a grant for it. And we decided we wanted to talk to Earmark because we knew if we were going to do this, we wanted to do it big, right? Questian?
We wanted to do it the right way. We wanted to give it the best chance at being successful that we could. So, and we want CPE too, right? So
yeah, CPE is really important for all of us. So that was why Now happened. But I think if you look more closely at what is going on in the world right now, I mean, these have always been problems. None of this is new, but there's no doubt that the current attack on DEI it's painful and it's terrifying. But that's not where our motivation came from. This is something that has always been important. And what's different is that now we're not talking about it around the water cooler. We have the reach of Earmark and podcast hosting platforms that have the power to help people feel less alone while they're in their own homes and home offices, right? Questian?
Yeah. And I think it's important because I think until we get to the point where women feel truly represented in their positions of leadership, and then they feel seen and heard in the roles that they occupy. We have equivalent salaries to men, for example. It needs to be discussed and it needs to be talked about. And so we need to keep pushing the cart forward as much as we can. And if you're not having those conversations, then you're not making progress. And it starts with people recognizing and acknowledgement. And, we're looking for not just it's podcast for women listeners. We're also looking for, the men in our lives to get involved and to hear the stories and to, as you were saying earlier, Randy, to hear that perspective and to then have it influence kind of decisions that you're making.
Yeah.
So that's really important too.
Do you think we're at a moment in time, though, where people are more open to hear? I mean, I think we're not any means perfect, but I think we're better than we were 5 years ago, in my opinion, at least on some of the topics I talk about, too, with mental health and that. If we got there with this, or is this still lagging behind other areas where people are getting more likely to share stories and be vulnerable?
For me, I would say that it depends who's listening, and it depends what community you're in. It depends what conference you attend. Are people more willing to listen to stories about people who don't look like them or think like them or have the same experiences they do? I'm not sure about that. I do think that people are becoming more willing for our industry as a whole to be more honest about the challenges that we are experiencing as accountants.
Okay.
Burnout is something that you hear discussed. Mental health is something you hear discussed in ways that we didn't used to, which is in a large part due to you, Randy. I mean, I want to put credit where credit is due here. There's no I see you shaking your head, and I know that our podcast listeners cannot see you shaking your head, but it is true. The Unique CPA podcast, the Bridging the Gap conference, the keynotes that you're doing at the various conferences, and just the inspiration that you are then giving others to take that torch and run with it, that kind of thing. I think that you're seeing lots of different types of posts on LinkedIn, for example, of people sharing real stories about things that are happening to them. So while I don't necessarily think that the voices of women and minorities and the disabled and other people who have traditionally had their voices suppressed or not been given a microphone or not been given a stage, I don't know that that's getting any better. In fact, it might be getting worse right now, but I do think that the time is right for people to open their minds to having honest conversations about the realities of what it means to work as an accountant.
Yeah. And it has to start somewhere, right? Somebody has to start it. And I think what you see is the more people make themselves vulnerable and they share the stories and they bring up the topics, then the more other people feel comfortable also talking about the same thing and sharing as well. So I agree. I'm not sure. In one aspect, I think people are ready to listen. And in another like the political climate feels like it's. Yeah,
you are correct. I think I live a little too much in a bubble. I live in Bridging the Gap and the Unique CPA world, and maybe I don't get out enough in other areas because I feel like at least we're trying to make a difference. And
Randy, though, you make an excellent point when you talk about that bubble. That's the bubble that Questian and I get to live in right now because we have gone to conferences for so many years and built so many wonderful relationships with people in the community. And we have these happy hour Zooms and we have WhatsApp groups and we have communities like Bookkeeping Buds and Ask a CPA and Realize and, so many groups out there. We are all sort of living in this bubble in a sense, but there are zillions and zillions of people, especially women, who don't have that. And that's why this podcast is important. This podcast is not just for the people who already agree with us that these are topics that need to be talked about. This podcast is to reach people in spaces where they're not feeling seen and they're not feeling heard and they don't get the benefit of that bubble. We want to take our bubble and we want to make it bigger and we want to bring them into it.
Yeah. And to Nancy's point, our plan is to have it kind of formatted less like interviews and more like a, hey, we're going to have conversation when we have, with an additional guest. So just like as if we were meeting at the coffee shop, the three of us were getting together and then we were talking about one of the topics. And what we really want to do is bring in other individuals that are either other accountants that are maybe leaders at bigger firms or smaller firms or are more diverse, as well as, having guests on that can really give perspective and different points of view, not just the two of us.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want it to be like just two white girls complaining about men. That is not what this podcast, I mean, this podcast could be that, right? I won't say that Questian and I have never gone out for drinks and just had a conversation where we got together and complained about men. That has happened in our lives, but that's not this podcast, right?
No.
Sometimes it'll be just us. Sometimes we'll have guests. We have a long wish list. Some of them names we all know, and some are newcomers to accounting. Some aren't in the industry, but they're recognized subject matter experts
Nice.
Yeah.
on issues that affect women in all professions. So I love what Questian's saying about we're trying to bring in voices of women who've had experiences that are not the same as ours. There's a lot, as you were saying, from that dinner that everybody has experienced, but there are some things that you're going to experience that are different if you're in a bigger firm or you're different if you're running your own firm.
Yep.
I mean, so we want those voices out there and we want them to reach people who need to hear them.
No, that sounds great. All right. So Questian, you said this, and Nancy, you too. We were just talking about, the different types of individuals and different positions within accounting. And I'm no expert, but looking at statistics, there's actually more women in accounting. I think it's, anywhere from 60% women to 40% men. I don't know if my numbers are right, but when you see the evolution or people grow in the profession, it seems like leadership becomes more male heavy, or it not seems. Believe me, I've been at conferences with leading partner conferences where it's 90% men, it feels like, in these conferences.
AICPA has actually done a lot of research on that, and Questian and I have looked up statistics on it, and the actual number that you're looking for is women hold only 19% of partner positions in CPA firms. And if you look broader in business context overall, it's only 14% in executive officer roles. And we know that your numbers at between 50 and 60% of people in accounting are women. So yes, please continue with what you're saying, but just to provide some data there.
So I've read things before, and I don't read a lot because I'm just not that smart, but I've read some things before. I don't know why I said that. Justin, cut that out. I've read things before, and I truly believe it, and I've seen in action where you have a diverse group in leadership. It just makes an organization that much stronger. So when you're seeing this, not just with men and women, but all different things, but how do you see elevating different kinds of people into leadership really do make a firm better, make a business better, help them be more successful?
Questian, do you want to talk a bit about the takeaways of that DEI panel that you were on at Scaling New Heights last year?
Well, I think one of the takeaways, I guess this is a takeaway, but then I'll answer Randy's question after. The biggest takeaway was that it needs a bigger stage. So we had it and it was great. The session was great, but what we really needed is people to come in, and we needed a bigger reach. That's what we realized. We really needed a bigger reach. But, to answer the question, like, how does it help? I mean, if you're speaking about women in particular, just think about, 40% of small business owners are actually women. So if you think about serving your clients and appropriately serving your clients, then you would want women in leadership in your firm because they're going to help your firm because they offer that representation. They have a female's perspective on servicing those clients. And when women feel seen and they feel heard, this definitely increases confidence and motivation. And so having representation in a business that is familiar to you, it really can build up your confidence. And one thing that I'll point out too is we talk about having pipeline issues, and not just when it comes to women, when we talk about, people of different ethnicities and different abilities, when you're looking at where you want to work, people generally want to feel a sense of belonging in their environment, right? So they're going to be looking at taking jobs in firms that are putting people that they see themselves in leadership positions. And so if you want your firm to be able to have a diverse set of clients and service a diverse set of clients, then you need to have a diverse set of individuals running your firm and working throughout your firm at all different levels.
I couldn't agree more.
I agree. And I use that as an example a lot when I'm out speaking, because for the first 10 years of Tri-Merit, we were clones of me. And we did a nice job. We grew decently. But when we intentionally got way more diverse in all areas of diverse, whatever it's sex or religion or where you're from or your abilities or your thought process or your faith or whatever, that's when we took off. Because the diversity of thought was so important that we did not have before. And that's what I've heard, especially in board of directors, when there's a mix of men and women in there, it's just a much better situation, is the story that I read before. I'm excited. I honestly wanted to ask about, how we can even support women more in this, but the show's going to talk about that. So I don't know if we have to get deep into that, unless you want to spend a little time on how do we support women in accounting? How do we, make sure women are better representative in leadership levels, or is that going to go way too deep into the conversation?
Well, it's something that needs to be talked about, which is why we're starting this podcast, right?
Exactly.
So it is something that I think that we should touch on to some extent here, but it'll be a sneak peek, right?
Okay,
as
let's
to
do it.
what is to come. We have so many topics that we want to cover on this podcast. We will never, ever, ever run out of topics to cover, but how we can support women in accounting is obviously going to be something that we return to over and over and over again. First, there's acknowledging that there's a problem.
Yep.
Right? Question talks often about recognizing the cognitive bias. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because I think that's where this all starts.
Yeah, of course. So, that's part of the problem, right? Is that we have these ideas and thoughts that our brains have been trained to think in a certain way, and we don't even recognize and know that it's happening. And it doesn't make people bad people. It just means that there are processes over many years of time that have been kind of handed down through families, through generations, that change the way, or that are impacting the way that we think about things. And I think it's important to recognize that we can change those thought processes. Our brains are very plastic, or have a lot of plasticity until much later in our lives. And so
whenever a question reminds me that our brains have a lot of plasticity, I'm always like, so you're telling me you really can teach an old dog new tricks?
I was like, you can.
I'm pretty excited about that.
Right. Yeah. I believe that.
Yeah.
But to do that, you have to have a plan,
Yep.
right? Like one of the things that I think that frustrates me when people talk about what can we do to support women, lots of the feedback that we get is just very vague. It's very oh, well, we have to change hiring practices, right? Yes, we have to change hiring practices, but how do we do that? Well, we have to change how we promote individuals. Okay. Yes, we have to do that. But how do we do that? And I love what Questian talks about. She's like, okay, we need to be intentional about all of these decisions we're making. We have to make sure we have representation in leadership roles. We have so many ways of thinking that we need to unlearn, but we're not going to do that if we don't get men to buy in.
Yeah.
Because it's not enough to have mentors.
Yeah, that's right.
This is amazing. I am truly looking forward to this. And we've teased some of what's going to be going on this, obviously, and topics and guests occasionally or sometimes, and conversations and sitting around the coffee shop discussing things type of atmosphere. But let's get into some. You said, in this Google sheet, you had a list of topics. Let's kind of get into the topics that you're looking to address on the podcast.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting ones is probably it's going to be one of our earlier topics. Initially, what we were like, oh, maybe we should call the podcast this. And it was start with no, because I think as women, we have a tendency to continually say yes to everything. So taking a step back, and then starting with no and coming up with reasons why you need to say yes rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
So that's one we're very excited about.
Yeah, definitely. That was the initial text conversation that we saved to that Google Doc. And then we realized naming the podcast Start With No just sounded so negative. And so even though conceptually it's a very positive thing, because then you're being very intentional about saying yes to all of the things that you want to say yes to if you start with no. So it is a very positive concept, but it's a very negative name. So I think She Counts is a much
I
stronger
love the
one.
name.
You love the name Start With No, or you love She Counts?
No, I love She Counts.
Yeah,
Oh,
me
funny.
too.
I love that name.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a plug for Bridging the Gap here, because one of the topics we're going to come back to time and time again in the podcast is vulnerability as a strength, which was the panel that I put together for last year's Bridging the Gap. Questian and I are both going to be speaking at this year's Bridging the Gap, which I am so excited about. That's coming up here in July. And if you haven't, is early bird pricing still going on?
May
Randy?
31st, early bird pricing ends. So we still have some time.
All right. Get on it. Get on it. I'm going to be presenting with Alnisha and Dawn Brolin on reasonable compensation. I'm also going to be talking about effective collaboration between bookkeepers and tax pros, which of course is what Ask a CPA, my community, is all about. Questian, what are you going to be talking about?
I'm going to be talking about building resilience. So the title is Bounce Back and Build Forward, and it's resilience strategies for thriving. And it's actually a panel with myself, and then Shirley is going to moderate, and Lynette will be, I don't know if I'm going to say her name right. I don't know her last name. I've ever said it before. Osconnell, yes. Yeah. So Lynette Osconnell is going to be a panelist, as well as Will Lopez. So
that's a powerhouse.
It is,
I think of people.
We all have some stories to share. And so we're going to share our stories, and we're going to talk about how building resilience can help, personally, but also in firms and professionally, and how you can do that. So I'm very excited about this topic. All of us are really excited, and it's near to all of our hearts.
And Bridging the Gap is just a killer conference, and it's going to be amazing to all be there together in person. And of course, Randy, you cannot have a podcast about women in any workplace without bringing up MeToo.
Oh, yeah. Right.
We all have horror stories, and that surprises not just men, like you were saying earlier, but many women, as Questian was saying earlier, they think they're the only one. I mean, that's why it became a movement.
Right.
It literally has happened to everyone. So MeToo is definitely going to be one of our topics.
Yes, it needs to be.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Questian's got a topic that is near and dear to her heart.
Yeah, we want to talk about mentorship in the industry. I was having a conversation with someone that I've been mentoring and is a dear friend of mine. And before I share that conversation, I will say that, Nancy has been a mentor for me, and the amount of mentorship that she has done for me and has really inspired me to kind of give that back as well to other women. So
thank you, Questian.
Yeah, of course. I'm very grateful. So mentorship is important to both of us. And I was also recently talking to somebody that I've kind of been mentoring, and she made a very insightful comment. And she said to me, "We see in each other what we fail to see in ourselves." And I just thought that was very profound, because when women are having these conversations with each other, we tend to be, I don't know if it's being humble or if it can be imposter syndrome or lack of self-confidence, but we're hard on ourselves. And when you have those relationships and that mentorship dynamic, you see in each other often what you don't see in yourselves. And so I think it's really important to have those relationships, because we really build one another up and help each other highlight our strengths.
Yep. And community. I mean, part of that, just knowing other people are out there and what they're doing and what they've been through and how they've solved whatever situation that they're dealing with. Community is, I think, such a big part of what helps this profession. And we all got to hang out together at plenty of places, and I always enjoy that. So
yes.
Yeah, we really do have a great community.
Yep.
We really do. We're so lucky. And it's going to be even bigger and even stronger once this podcast reaches people who don't have that community. They haven't had the opportunities that we have had to connect with each other at these various conferences and events like Bridging the Gap. I'm excited to pull them into our bubble and bring them into the community and have them experience the benefits of what it means when we all support each other and we're all looking out for each other's best interests.
Yep. Well,
Yeah.
that sounds great. All right. Before we wrap things up, we have to give some data. When's this launching? Where is it launching?
Yeah, we are shooting for mid-May. So just keep your eyes peeled on our LinkedIn profiles. I'm on LinkedIn at Nancy-McClelland-CPA and Question.
I think it's question-telka-ea.
Yep.
But I mean, my name's pretty unique, so I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure if you search it, you can find it.
Like the word question, but with an AN instead of an ON. Also, I have a regular MSN column, and I will definitely be talking about this. So if you follow my MSN column, and of course on Earmark, if you are not already using Earmark for earning CPE for listening to podcasts, get over there and sign up because they're amazing and they're going to be doing some promo as well. If you have any questions or you're interested in becoming a sponsor, please email me at shecounts@thedancingaccountant.com, or you can reach out to Question.
Yeah, you can reach out to me, not Question. It's
She Counts.
That is not the email address. It's shecounts@reconcilefinancials.com. And that's REQONCILE. We like to do plays on words around here. So
nice. And we will put those in the show notes too. So we should have the correct spelling and links and everything in the show notes. And I am super excited to see this go and to listen to it. And it'll definitely be on my playlist. And I'm excited to learn as much as I can to see if I can do my part to be an advocate and ally to support and promote the conference and women in the profession.
We're very excited about the podcast. Thank you so much for bringing us on to the Unique CPA to announce it. This is our big lunch announcement, Randy. This is it.
Believe me, I'm honored. This is I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. We got breaking news here that we're sharing today.
Yeah.
So very exciting. So I want to ask one last question. Nancy, you can chime in. And because we do this, even though this is a big announcement podcast, I'd have to do this every podcast because I just love hearing what people do when they're not working. And so I don't know, Nancy, if you want to answer first and then Question can, but when we're not promoting She Counts, you're not promoting moving forward in the profession, you're not doing your work inside your businesses. What do you do for fun? What's your outside of work passions? Nancy, you want to go again?
Obviously, given that my company's name is literally The Dancing Accountant, I'm guessing your listeners can guess that I love to dance. I specifically love to dance to 1960s go-go music. So think Nancy Sinatra, these boots are made for walking. That's my favorite thing to do. I also love museums. I will go to literally any museum. I'm there. And if you're also a museum person and we're at a conference together, ping me and let's do it.
Nice. And Question?
I have to follow that up and say, I also love to dance, but to a different style of music, which anybody who knows me well knows that I do plenty of dancing.
What's your favorite style of music for dancing?
Electronic dance music.
Yeah.
I had a feeling.
Yeah. How did you know? And traveling with friends to see shows, but also just travel in general. And in fact, on Friday, I'm taking my son to Paris. So
nice.
We're very excited about that.
So
first time?
For that
both of our first times. We're going to experience it first for both of us. He's 14. So we're both really excited. We're going to gain 10 pounds while we're there.
Hey, Randy, what kind of music do you dance to?
Zero.
Come on. I know that's not true.
I don't dance. I honestly, I have a mental block with dancing and I want to get past it, but it can't be in a crowd. So it has to be in a small area first where I can get more comfortable. I'm pretty confident in most everything I do. Dancing is not something that I feel very self-conscious when I'm dancing.
We're going to work on that. I've got something for you that is going to be a ton of fun that we're going to do at Bridging the Gap. I've got some ideas.
Well, I am 3 weeks into knee replacement surgery right now, so I won't be dancing for a while. But
you've been hiking like crazy.
I have been hiking, which is insane. I shouldn't have recovered this fast from surgery, but I'm super fortunate that it's going much faster than anybody could have expected.
Really
yeah.
It's wonderful. I'm so glad.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks again, both of you, for being on. I look forward to seeing you both, I'm sure, before Bridging the Gap, somewhere out in the real world.
Yes. We'll be at Scaling New Heights. So we'll see you in June. And Randy, I will see you next month as we celebrate our birthdays together.
Oh, that's right.
In Chicago.
We will, but not on my birthday because I'm camping that day. So the week. And I am hosting an event from the campsite. I just got asked for Financial Sense, actually. We just gave Financial Sense a plug. They're doing a post-tax season.
I am going to be performing at Financial Sense's, not just performing, I'm going to be teaching people to dance at the Financial Sense on May 2nd, right?
Yeah, that's the day. That's the day.
I will be there as well. I'm going to be teaching people how to do a couple of dances to kind of shake off the tax season, get your joints moving and celebrate our freedom. So, I will see you there, Randy.
Well, I will learn to dance online. I'll be at the campsite doing it with just Kathy
Nobody
watching.
will be able to see you. It'll be perfect.
All right. Any final thoughts before we close it up? It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for having us and for giving us a platform to share this project that, means a lot to both of us. So really appreciate it. We're very excited.
Absolutely. You are the most nice and fun person that I know.
That's our motto,
Randy.
Nice and fun. So,
nice and fun.
Just don't ask him to dance.
All right. That's not fun. Eventually, maybe. I don't know. At 62, can that happen?
We'll
see.
One day, we'll get there.
All right. Well, thank you both for being here.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on the Unique CPA. You can find the show notes for today's episode and learn more about TriMerit at theuniquecpa.com. Remember to subscribe and leave a 5-star rating on your favorite podcasting app. And join us next time for more expertise and insights on the Unique CPA. Professionalproductions.net